Alrighty, so today I'm joined by Patrick. He's one of our coaches inside the group, inside Craftsman4Cash, and we've been friends for a while. So we really kind of went through a lot of these initial trials, figuring out this method together, each with our own route. But I'll let him tell his story. Pat, thanks so much for coming on here to share your story. And we're just going to try to give people an idea of what it looks like starting out to, getting to that first profit. What that journey looks like. So just give us some idea of where you were coming from when you started. I know you're a few years in now, why you needed to start or wanted to start a side hustle, and then what your kind of experience and setup was like in terms of just getting started.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. This is great. I guess, I started, it's probably been two and a half years now since I started. And just growing up, like my dad was working, he'd do just different projects, never for money, just as a hobby. And so I learned how to use some of the tools just around him, and then also just had a few construction jobs. So learned how to use like different saws or drills, that sort of stuff. And I never really considered building furniture or having my own woodworking business. Never really thought that you could make a go of that. So I was a teacher at a private school, and then when the COVID lockdown started, I just found myself with a lot more free time, and we were in a pretty small apartment at the time. And my brother-in-law, I didn't have any tools at that time. My brother-in-law had a couple tools just in his garage, and we were looking for a coffee table, and my wife found one online, and I had a bit more time, so I was like, you know what, I'll make the coffee table. So I just kind of looked around online. We found a design that we liked, figured out roughly how to make it, spent a weekend, just buying the lumber and then borrowing my brother-in-law's tools, made it in his garage because we didn't have much space. And then when we were finished, it was a pretty nice coffee table, the farmhouse, Anna White farmhouse design, I think they call it. And then I've been talking to you, and you were saying that you were starting to sell stuff online with your own woodworking. Then I have another friend who was interested in it as well. So I just took a couple pictures and put the ad up on Kijiji and Marketplace. And it was pretty simple, and I priced it fairly low, I guess, due to the volume that I received. But in that weekend, I think I posted it on the Friday afternoon was when I finished it. And by Sunday, I had over 2,500 views on the table. It was over 40 messages of people inquiring for the table, which goes to show you that it was fairly low priced. But it kind of just blew up where I was like, all right, like people obviously want this. So I sold that table immediately. My wife didn't get it, and then just started to dive into making that table. And I think in the next 6 weeks, I made probably, I believe it was 25 of that specific table, and priced them up a little bit more each time. I probably made 25 similar tables within the next 6 weeks. And if one didn't sell or something, you just take a picture and post it online, and you'd have people fighting over each other to get them. So it kind of just exploded in that summer is how I got started.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I had kind of a similar experience, not quite as fast as you, honestly. It took me a little time to find the right design that really resonated, but there is something that happens when you get the right, kind of the right product, and that just gels with people. Yeah, those messages do start to pour in, and that's when you can start to see some pretty good results. So I guess, what were those first tables? People can check out that design, but what were they selling for? What was your kind of investment into them, and what did that look like kind of for the cost benefit?
Yeah, so the first ones, I bought a drill, which was the only thing I bought. A drill, a square, a tape measure, and the rest I just borrowed the tools from my brother-in-law. And I built the first table. The cost in lumber at that time was about $60, including screws and paint and stain and lumber and everything. And I sold it for $200. And it took probably 10 hours to make. So a profit of about $14 an hour, which wasn't great. But by the end of that 6 weeks, I was selling the tables for $350. And it was taking me about 7 to 8 hours to build. And my initial goal when I sold the first one was just that I'd like to have some tools, and maybe I would make enough tables to help pay for the tools essentially. So I would, I kind of priced it out and said, all right, if I buy a table saw and a skill saw, a drill, a couple of chisels, it's going to cost me, $800, which means that I'll have to build 5 tables. And then so I set my goal as 5 tables for some basic tools. And just as they kept going, my design got a bit better. The tables definitely got faster to build, easier to make because I wasn't having to think too much about them. The quality also went up. So if I think about that first one that I sold for $200, it was worth $200 because the quality wasn't as great. But by the time I was at the end of the 6 weeks and selling them for $350, the quality was just night and day difference. Better materials, glue ups, hiding the screws versus having them visible, spending more time painting and staining, finishing the tops versus leaving them unfinished. Yeah, so over that 6 weeks, it kind of well, I mean, I paid for my tools, and then way beyond that in those 6 weeks. And so by the end of it, I was always pricing it out per hour. And it went from like $14 an hour to the first one to around $30 to $35 an hour for the final ones. And then, yeah, the rest just kind of stopped looking back after that. Now I've made desks and hall trees, getting into dining room tables. So constantly just trying to upgrade the skills, upgrade that dollars per hour amount, to get it where it's, it's something you can be pretty proud of.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I mean, we were kind of keeping track of this pretty closely for a little bit, but I think you got close to 50 for some of those projects. I know you were kind of just continuing to push it, but yeah, it definitely, I saw the same thing, just increasingly seeing that, that return grow. And that's obviously the goal as we get better and better at this, is to try to increase that profit. But yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, that covers kind of how you got started. How have you kind of evolved the process as you've gotten going? You mentioned doing different products. So do you just see what has the best returns, or how do you choose what to build next? How do you look at that?
Well, I look at it's 2 ways. One, I have my goal, which I've set out for myself, and my goal is to sell a $10,000 table. So that's kind of my goal. And I haven't come close to that yet. The highest I've sold a table for is 2,600. But that's my goal. And if you look at a table that sells for $10,000, I mean, just the tools that you need, the skills that you need to have, they're to the next level. And so always just trying to level up and level up. So I started out with, just pocket hole screws and using pine, building a good coffee table, but nothing extraordinary. Transitioning then into like oak coffee tables, which I've done a few of those for. And again, your risk goes up because the cost to build is a bit higher. Just oak is a nicer wood. Need some different tools there, some clamps, and then just slowly leveling it up. And as you level up, your initial investment gets a bit higher, where you might need some extra tools. You might be spending more on the wood, but then you're selling it, and then you're also taking yourself out of level 1 where there's a ton of competition. If you look on Facebook Marketplace right now, I don't know if people saw my original table. If people when I first posted it, I was the only one, and now if I go back to the area, there's about 12 people selling that same table. But as you level up, you just start weeding out the competition, and so going on to oak coffee tables, and then getting into custom made bars, custom made chairs, hall trees. So always trying to level up that skill, with the final goal of getting to that $10,000 table. So right now, what I'm doing, I'm trying to keep it all hardwood coffee tables, all like oak or ash. Looking at dining room tables, same sort of thing, and trying to get away from the coffee tables, just because your profits are so much bigger the more specialized and the bigger you go. So I just sold a table last week where I sold it for gross profit of 2,600. It probably took me roughly 18 to 22 hours to build. And if we go over a net profit per hour, it's somewhere in the $75 to $85 an hour. Which, if you were to ask me at that start, when I thought $30 an hour was great, well, I'm not, you just keep going up and up
Yep.
from there. So yeah. And I
Yeah.
would say the big thing, um, at that time, so at the summer when I first started, it was, there was lockdowns. I was teaching, so I had the summer off, and I was thinking about getting a part-time job. And even, if you've got good qualifications or tutoring or whatever you're going into, right? Like a great part-time job is $20 an hour. Um, it doesn't even come close to what you're doing now. You're at home. You can make a fresh pot of coffee if you want to sleep in a little bit, listen to music while you work. I've got a 2-year-old son, so he's around me. It's just a great atmosphere. And then, if I look at myself now, it's $75 an hour, which is pretty good for a part-time job or for a side hustle. So it's, in 2 years, it's just crazy how far you can go.
Yeah, I totally agree. And even just on the note of I mean, it is work at the end of the day, it's work, but when you can throw a podcast in, be on your own schedule, and just knowing that you're doing something for yourself, that you're making this and that you're going to get profit from it, I mean, it's really it's a far cry from hopping in your car and driving to Home Depot for, evenings or Saturday to work a job like that. So I can
Mhm.
definitely relate to that. And also to just, getting better and better at scaling up. My niche is a little bit different than yours in that it's tends to be a lot of outdoor stuff in the summer. So it's less finished, it's less polished, but it's kind of a different, in the same way that you were able to outstrip some of the competition. I did that just with some of my designs, realizing that I could set myself apart. First getting started on Marketplace just to get those initial orders. But then, like you mentioned, people remember you and they'll come back to you for different things. They'll like your work. And then you can start to really, build your own kind of niche that way because people like and respect your work. So that's awesome. And I guess the other thing is just in terms of, getting a side hustle going, like what did it mean to kind of make that extra money? Was there something specific you were trying to pay off or do with it, or what did it look like just to have that extra kind of disposable income?
Yeah. I mean, just in turn, like, I mean, the way I started, it wasn't really to make any extra money, right? I was just building a coffee table because I had a lot of free time. Once you make that first sale, though, you kind of, I mean, it's a great feeling. And then you kind of get into it where maybe you're saving up you've got, your budget all spent out, but then you're like, well, if I just build a coffee table, then I have this much extra in the budget.
Yeah.
Or if I can just get this dining room table done on time, then it's not found money. Um, yeah, it's one of those things where, yeah, where maybe you're saving up for something, or maybe you're not, maybe you're just, keeping that money aside. But once you start getting into it, once you stop looking at it like I'm going to work for somebody else, I'm just going to put in my hours, punch the clock sort of thing, versus, well, if I make this and if I make it well, then we're building something. Um, your time starts becoming a lot better, and you start a Tuesday evening, instead of like just getting home from work and then crashing on the couch and throwing on a movie or something. Your Tuesday evening is, well, planning out the next job, where I'm going to spend 3-4 hours just doing something in the shop, or what I call a shop, which isn't really much of a shop, but doing something there where it's just, puttering around, figuring out different designs, growing your skills so that, yeah, you're able to, turn that profit and be successful and just grow your business in that way. Even if it's just fooling around on figuring out how to build a website, or, watching an hour of how to improve your Instagram page or your Facebook page, or how to, reach out and market to an audience.
Mhm.
It becomes really fun, and your time starts becoming, more productive. But overall, like, if you're saving up for something, that's great. But if nothing else, it's a lot of fun to build something and, yeah, grow a business.
Yeah, 100%. And totally agree with that. You just start to have fun with it in different ways, realize how you can improve for sure. And one thing you alluded to there, which I mean, sometimes can be a barrier. People can think, well, I don't have a big shop, or I don't have all the tools, or I didn't, take a course in woodworking. But I mean, you've just made a lot with what you've had in terms of just your space. And so maybe just a quick comment on getting started with
Yeah.
all the tools and without all the resources and without all the space.
Yeah, so when I first started, we were in a basement apartment. And like I said, I just borrowed tools from my brother-in-law and used his garage, which was not ideal. It was great to be able to use the space, but it was, it was tough at times where you have, kids' bikes and you're trying to move all this stuff. We're in a house right now, but it doesn't have a garage or a shop or anything. So I just converted a mudroom, which is about 6 feet wide and 14 feet long, so a pretty small space. And I just converted that into a shop. So I've got shelves with all my tools stacked up and put a light in there. And it gets pretty cold in the winter, but in the summer, I just try to work outside as much as I can. And then I just, yeah, my in-laws live pretty close by, and they have a big garage. So that dining room table I finished, I bought everything, kind of got it all ready here, and then just brought it over, assembled it all, and finished it up there. So it's just making use of the space. And if you can work outdoors, that's great. If you can, bring your tools outside, do all your cutting and sanding and everything outside, and then just bring it all back in for the night, it's not too bad. But you don't need a huge shop. Like I'll watch YouTube videos, and it's, they'll say like how to build a table for $30, and then they have $10,000 worth of equipment, and they're like, oh, we'll bring it over to our CNC machine, and you see their shop, and it's 1,000 square feet and just massive. But you don't need that. You can start out with stuff pretty small. Even right now, we're finding that as it's getting colder, it's tough to do bigger things. So I'm just, I'm taking the winter, and I'm just leveling down, getting into, whether it's charcuterie boards or cutting boards or different holiday gifts, and, still keeping fine craftsmanship, but not fighting the space that I don't have, and just, not bemoaning the fact I don't have a big shop, but just saying, well, what can I do in a small shop for the winter, and not fighting it on that one.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's just it's almost like an overlooked thing, how much you can do with just some simple skills and simple tools, and create some of these things that have real value, and especially in the local market. I mean, we can talk another time about kind of scaling up and maybe doing things online. It's obviously a great goal to have, but yeah, there's a lot of people. I think one thing that's overlooked is just the amount of traffic on places like Facebook Marketplace, with people locally looking for things and really appreciating just the handcrafted kind of option. And so many times all you got to do, I think, is just make that thing and put them in front of it, and you've got the beginnings of a pretty solid business. So I know you've done that.
Yeah.
That's what I found as well.
Yeah, people love to buy local. I know it. Everybody says it, and until you become a local seller, you don't really realize just how much people love it. When people are showing off their coffee table or having guests over, somebody's like, "That's a great table. Where'd you get it?" They love to be able to tell the story.
Yeah.
Where it's like, "Oh, I brought it off this local craftsman. He does this, and here's his story, and we got it here." And people love to be able to talk about those things. They're buying a nice piece of furniture, and they want to be able to tell a story along with that piece of furniture. And so if you're just a local, if that's all you're selling to, and if you're not doing any shipping, I mean, it's a huge market. You can buy stuff on Wayfair or buy stuff, on Amazon, but it doesn't come with a story because it's not local. And people love the fact that they're supporting a small local business. And again, until you become that small local business, you don't realize how much people love that.
Yeah, 100%. Well, awesome. I think the final thing will just be asking for your number one tip for someone who's maybe on the fence thinking about this, has some skills, maybe has a bit of time to do this. What would your tip be for them to get started and make a sale, make a few $100 extra right off the bat?
Probably build something. Probably be my number one tip. Just build something. Doesn't matter what it is. Build something, take a picture of it, and put it online. And even if you sell it for half of what it's worth, you're still selling something, and you'll still realize that there's a market for it out there. This is one I did last night. It's a little Christmas tree, right? It's the easiest thing. Just glue it together, didn't need any clamps. Build that. It'll take you 10 minutes, and someone's going to buy it maybe for 12 bucks. And if not, that's fine. You've got it in your own home. But yeah, just build something and take a picture and put it online and put it on Facebook, and people will be out there. People want that sort of stuff. So just, get out of your own head and put some wood together and build something that you like.
100%. I think that's awesome advice. And that's one of the great things about this side hustle is the creativity portion of it. Really, it's very action based. There's not a lot of humming and hawing, like just build something and post it. The more things you post, the more you learn, the more feedback you get. and the better you get at increasing your profits, and then even finding out what you like to build. So you're awesome at that. It's always cool to see what, new things you're trying out. And this is obviously stuff that we talk about in the community and get into more, how to just optimize this, make this side hustle work better for you. But yeah, thanks so much for sharing your story, Pat, and catch up with you soon, eh?
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
All right, peace.